The air inside Camp Ironclad's canteen felt thick with salt and heat, the kind that stuck to the skin and made tempers short. Friday nights on base always sounded the same. Boots thudding, laughter echoing off steel walls, the chatter of soldiers unwinding after another week of drills. But tonight, the noise shifted when Sergeant Blake Turner's voice cut through the air like a snapped command. "Hey, sweetheart, that uniform regulation issue? Or are you just playing dress-up?" Conversation stilled, eyes turned, and a ripple of cruel amusement spread through the room. Turner grinned, towering over a small woman standing by the counter. Her jacket hung loosely on her frame, sleeves rolled too long, the name patch slightly faded. She looked out of place amid the loud, muscular crowd, a fragile silhouette in a fortress built for war. Lieutenant Paige Rivera smirked, pulling out her phone. "Get this on camera," she whispered to Corporal Dax Monroe, who was already recording, eager for the viral moment. The mockery deepened. Taunts about wannabe soldiers and stolen valor queens flew like shrapnel. Yet, the woman said nothing. She didn't cry, didn't argue. She simply stood there, still as stone, eyes calm, breathing measured. That silence did something strange to the crowd. It unnerved them. Confidence thrives on reaction, and she gave them none. From a shadowed corner, Major Evan Cross observed with the stillness of a hunter. His gaze never left her, his instincts whispering warnings that the others couldn't hear. As Turner's laughter filled the canteen, Cross's fingers moved casually across his phone, activating a recording protocol meant for moments that matter. Something about her, the restraint, the precision of her stillness, didn't fit the profile of a frightened imposter. She wasn't scared. She was assessing. And as the tension in the room thickened, Cross realized that what they were mocking might be far more dangerous than any of them could imagine. "I have orders to report here, Sergeant." The woman's voice was soft, almost melodic, but it carried the quiet steadiness of someone who didn't waste words. Sergeant Turner snatched the papers from her hand with exaggerated impatience, waving them like a flag of mockery. "Orders, huh? Let's see what Mommy printed off Google this time." Laughter rippled through the canteen again, louder now, more confident, like a mob feeding off its own cruelty. Lieutenant Paige Rivera leaned forward, eyes sharp with condescension. "Let me guess, sweetheart, community theater's next door. Uniform's nice, though, I'll give you that." The soldiers nearby grinned, ready for another round of humiliation. Riley Knox didn't flinch. She didn't even look at them. Her gaze drifted over the room, quiet and calculating. One exit near the east wall, unguarded. 2 mirrors angled enough to monitor movement behind her. 16 soldiers within 10 meters, 9 with clear lines of sight. She noted each detail the way others might count heartbeats. Her breathing stayed slow, precise, the kind that only comes from disciplined control. Turner mistook it for fear, the trembling submission of someone cornered. But Major Cross, watching from his table, saw something different, a predator camouflaged by humility. Turner tapped the papers against his palm. "These aren't real. You think we're stupid? I've seen better forgeries on base TikTok." The laughter swelled again, desperate now, as if volume could drown out the creeping discomfort in the air. Cross's hand slid across his encrypted device, typing in her name, Lieutenant Riley Knox. The screen pulsed once, then again, before freezing. "Access denied. Tier 5 clearance required." His pulse quickened. That clearance level didn't exist for ordinary personnel. Turner grinned, enjoying his audience. "All right, Lieutenant," he sneered, emphasizing the title like poison. "Since you're such a big shot, let's see what you actually know. Standard weapons protocol. Tell us how to field strip an M17. His tone was playful, but there was challenge beneath it, the hunger to expose her as a fraud. Riley finally looked up, her expression unreadable. The room seemed to shrink around her, every sound dimming into that impossible calm. "Are you sure you want me to answer that, Sergeant?" she asked quietly. And for the first time, something flickered behind Turner's grin, a shadow of uncertainty he didn't yet understand. Turner's smirk widened as he reached for the sidearm holstered at his thigh. He drew the M17 with unnecessary flair, cleared it for safety, and placed it on the table between them with a loud metallic clink that seemed to echo through the canteen. "All right, Lieutenant," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Let's see what your little drama club taught you." Field strip and reassemble this weapon in under 30 seconds. Think you can manage that without breaking a nail? His squad chuckled, the sound sharp and eager, their eyes already on their watches. Riley Knox stepped forward without a word. She didn't argue, didn't posture. She simply picked up the pistol, holding it with the kind of respect soldiers reserved for something sacred. The moment her fingers touched the weapon, the air shifted. The laughter softened, though no one could have said why. Her hands moved, smooth, efficient, impossibly fast. The weapon came apart in her grasp, each component placed neatly on the table like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Slide, barrel, spring, frame. No wasted motion, no hesitation. 21 seconds later, she snapped it back together. Chamber checked, safety on, muzzle down. The pistol rested perfectly balanced in her palm. No one spoke. Turner stared, his smugness draining into confusion. The stopwatch in his hand ticked once more before he looked down. 21 seconds, he muttered, his voice thin. Riley met his eyes for the first time, steady calm. You said 30. It wasn't a boast. It was a reminder, delivered like a quiet reprimand. The silence that followed felt heavier than any explosion. Lieutenant Rivera broke it first, her voice sharper than before. Beginner's luck, she snapped. Try something real. She gestured toward the weapons rack on the far wall. Let's see how you do with an M4 carbine. Turner hesitated but retrieved the rifle, setting it on the table with unnecessary force. Rivera crossed her arms, her eyes gleaming with the kind of confidence that only ignorance could sustain. 18 seconds, she said. That's the base record. If you're for real, beat that. Riley studied the weapon briefly, fingers tracing its form, not admiration, but recognition. Then she moved. Pins, bolt carrier, buffer spring. Each piece came apart with rhythmic precision, like a song only her hands could play. The crowd leaned forward unconsciously, drawn in by the hypnotic speed. She didn't rush, but she didn't falter. The rifle reassembled itself under her touch, a seamless blur of muscle memory and mastery. She stepped back, voice calm. 16 seconds. Rivera's jaw slackened. Turner said nothing. Somewhere near the back, a soldier whispered, "That's impossible." But in the corner, Major Cross's phone vibrated. He looked down to see the message that made his blood run cold. Facial recognition match. File redacted. Tier 7 clearance. Cross's eyes lifted slowly to the woman standing in the center of the room, her posture relaxed, her face serene. The other saw a mystery. He saw something else, something that should not exist. Turner's composure cracked under the weight of his own humiliation. The silence that followed Riley's flawless display scraped at his ego until it broke something loose inside him. He needed to reassert control, to remind everyone that his authority still meant something. "All right, enough games," he said, voice rough with anger he tried to disguise as command. "If you're really authorized to be here, you won't mind a security verification." Everyone knew what that meant. A strip search. Public. Degrading. Wrapped in the flimsy excuse of protocol. Rivera straightened immediately, seizing the chance to reclaim her own authority. "I'll handle it, Sergeant," she said smoothly, her words rehearsed and professional, but her eyes alight with something less noble. "We'll keep it by the book." Before anyone could respond, the door slammed open. Colonel David Harris entered with the clipped stride of a man whose presence usually ended conversations. "What the hell is going on here?" he barked, scanning the scene. The scattered weapons, the silent crowd, the woman standing motionless at its center. Turner stiffened, his hands snapping into salute. "Just confirming the authenticity of this individual's orders, sir," he said quickly, thrusting the papers toward him. Harris took them, his expression hard to read. The documents were perfect, signatures, seals, formatting, all correct. Yet, as he reached the final page, his brow furrowed. The assignment codes were valid but encrypted beyond his clearance. That wasn't just unusual, it was unheard of. "Lieutenant Knox," he said carefully, eyes narrowing. "These orders are above my access level. Care to explain?" Riley's tone remained calm, almost gentle. "I'm afraid I can't, sir." The words were respectful but absolute. Turner took a step forward, emboldened by Harris's hesitation. "She's lying, sir. Probably a foreign plant. Look at her. No insignia, no records, no explanation. If she's legit, let her prove it." The tension in the canteen thickened to the point of suffocation. Harris opened his mouth to speak, but Riley moved first. "It's fine," she said quietly. "If it eases concerns, I'll comply." She began unbuttoning her jacket, movements deliberate and composed, her eyes never leaving Turner's. Every breath in the room held still, caught between curiosity and guilt. But in the corner, Major Cross's phone vibrated violently against the table. He glanced down, and the color drained from his face. Across the encrypted screen, in urgent red text, 3 words repeated like a warning siren: "Abort immediately. Target identified. Ghost command." The room held its breath as Riley slid the last button free. For a moment, the tension stretched thin enough to snap, every soldier watching through a haze of unease and anticipation. Then she peeled off the jacket, her gray undershirt clinging to a frame that was lean but unmistakably powerful. Turner's smirk flickered back to life, until she lifted the fabric higher. Gasps rippled through the canteen as the fluorescent lights caught the ink that spread across her back like a living shadow. 2 dragons, one black as night, the other silver as steel, intertwined over a compass rose and a trident. The scales seemed to shimmer with movement, their eyes locked in eternal balance. The mark wasn't decorative. It was iconic, sacred, recognized only in classified briefings and whispered rumors. The Ghost Division insignia. Colonel Harris's face drained of color. His body reacted before his mind caught up, his spine straightened, hand rising in salute as his voice came out rough with disbelief. "Commander Riley Knox, Naval Special Warfare Command, Ghost Division, SEAL Team 7. The words fell like detonations in the stunned silence. Turner staggered back as though struck. Rivera's phone slipped from her fingers and clattered against the floor. No one moved. Even the air seemed frozen. Riley lowered her shirt with slow precision, the movement as deliberate as everything she had done since stepping into that room. When she spoke, her voice carried no anger, no triumph, just the cold clarity of truth. "I've been embedded here for 90 days, she said, assessing leadership integrity under stress. "Congratulations, Sergeant. You just failed the evaluation." Turner's face went chalk white. His mouth opened, but no words came. From the corner, Major Cross stood, pressing a single button on his encrypted comms. "Command, this is ironclad surveillance. Confirm visual on Ghost Commander. Umbra infiltration verified." His tone was clipped, professional, but his eyes betrayed the awe and dread of a man realizing he had been playing chess against a grandmaster while thinking it was checkers. Then, without warning, the base lights flickered. Once, twice. A low alarm began to wail, the kind that vibrated in the chest more than the ears. The emergency lights bled red across the walls. Soldiers instinctively reached for weapons they didn't understand they'd need. Harris turned sharply toward the comms officer, but Riley was already speaking, her voice cutting clean through the chaos. "We're not alone," she said quietly. "Umbra's here." The words dropped like lead into the silence that followed, and every instinct in the room screamed that whatever humiliation had just ended was nothing compared to what was about to begin. The lights died completely, plunging the canteen into darkness so absolute it felt alive. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Riley's voice sliced through the void, steady, composed, commanding. "Everyone freeze. Breathe. Listen." Her tone wasn't loud, yet it carried the kind of authority that bypassed rank and demanded instinctive obedience. "We are under internal assault. Sergeant Turner, comms relay, 2 meters left. Secure an open channel to base command and hold position." Turner blinked through the dark, muscles frozen from the shock of hearing his name. "Move," Riley ordered, and he did, every ounce of arrogance stripped away, replaced by something new: purpose. "Lieutenant Rivera, First Aid Station. Prep triage. If anyone gets hit, you'll stabilize them there. Monroe, lock down the east and south entries. I want eyes on movement, not noise." Her words flowed like a combat rhythm, each instruction clean and precise, as though the room itself was part of a pre-planned operation. Soldiers who moments ago had been laughing now scrambled to obey, their training kicking in under her calm dominance. Through the thin red haze of emergency lights, movement flickered outside the canteen windows, shadows shifting with unnatural coordination. Riley's tablet glowed faintly in her palm, an interface no one else recognized. 12 heat signatures, she murmured. Umbra extraction unit. They're here for the double agent. Her eyes found Cross. His face drained of color as he backed toward the wall, realizing too late that the hunter's gaze had always been fixed on him. Riley tapped a sequence on the tablet. A silent signal pulsed across frequencies inaccessible to standard military equipment. Outside, the night erupted in precise bursts of soundless light. Her reinforcements, ghost operatives emerging like wraiths from the darkness. Within minutes, controlled chaos became order. Gunfire flared, then fell quiet. The breach never reached the canteen. When the main lights finally returned, Cross was on his knees, hands bound behind him, disbelief etched into every feature. Riley stood over him, calm as dawn. Mission complete, she said softly, almost to herself. Harris, standing at her shoulder, finally understood. The humiliation, the infiltration, the reveal, all of it had been orchestrated from the start. The chaos they'd witnessed wasn't her losing control. It was her revealing just how much control she had always held. By dawn, the storm had passed. Smoke drifted lazily above Camp Ironclad, curling into a sky streaked with pale light. The alarms had gone silent, replaced by the low hum of generators and the quiet shuffle of soldiers too stunned to speak. The night's chaos had ended, but its echo lingered in every corner of the base. Where humiliation and mockery had once filled the air, there was now only reverence, and the uneasy awareness that everything had changed. Riley stood outside the canteen, her uniform restored, her posture impeccable. Major Cross had been extracted hours ago under heavy guard, his double agent status confirmed. The Umbra infiltration network that had shadowed Ironclad for months was in ruins. But the mission, Riley knew, had always been about more than espionage. It was about the cracks inside, the rot that had made infiltration possible in the first place. When Colonel Harris approached, she handed him a sealed file stamped Ghost Command, post-action report. Her tone was measured, almost clinical. Umbra wasn't the only threat here, Colonel. Toxic leadership, complacency, and moral decay created the conditions they exploited. This base wasn't compromised by force. It was compromised by arrogance. Harris nodded, every word cutting with the sting of truth. And the personnel? He asked quietly. Riley's gaze softened, but her words remained precise. Turner's demoted. He'll undergo ethical rehabilitation and psychological reconditioning at Fort Bragg. Rivera is reassigned to lead the Minorship Reform Unit. Her competitive edge needs redirection, not destruction. Monroe stays under probation. He followed, but he didn't lead. Harris exhaled, the weight of it all pressing into his shoulders. And the young private? He asked. Riley's lips curved slightly, almost a smile. Noah Reed. The only one who spoke up when it counted. She glanced toward the barracks where he stood at attention, still processing the night's revelations. He'll be recommended for Ghost Initiative training. Integrity that pure is rarer than talent, and far more dangerous. A light wind stirred as she turned to leave. Before she did, she pressed something into Harris's hand, a small medallion, black and silver, etched with twin dragons coiled around a trident. Give this to him when I'm gone, she said softly. Not every seal bears the mark. Some earn it. Then she walked toward the landing pad, her figure sharp against the morning light, boarding the stealth transport that shimmered briefly before disappearing into the clouds. Hours later, Harris found Reed in his quarters. The young man stood as the colonel entered, confusion flickering into awe when the medallion dropped into his palm. Its surface was cool, heavy with meaning. Beneath the intertwined dragons, 3 words were engraved: balance, honor, shadow. He looked up, but Harris was already turning to leave. She said to tell you, he murmured, the Ghost Division's always watching. Reed closed his fingers around the medallion, feeling the pulse of legacy in its weight. He wasn't just holding metal. He was holding a promise, forged in secrecy and sacrifice. Outside, the sun rose higher over Camp Ironclad, casting long shadows that stretched toward a future reshaped by integrity. Somewhere, unseen, the Ghost Commander was already on another mission. And somewhere deep inside Reed's chest, the spark she left behind began to burn.